Yours, Victor. You're the point man.
Welcome to the Indian Gaming Association's The New Normal webcast. My name is Lisa Johnson. I'm the conference manager for the Indian Gaming Trade Show and Convention. I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips before we get started. Everyone is muted by default except for our speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question or chat box and they'll be brought up at the end. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Victor Rocha, conference chairman of the Indian Gaming Association.
Good morning, Indian country. Welcome to The New Normal, your go-to source for insightful discussions on the gaming industry and critical issues affecting Native American tribes across the United States. I'm Victor Rocha. My co-host is Jason Giles, the executive director of the Indian Gaming Association. And in today's webinar, we're talking to Indian Gaming Association Chairman Ernest Stevens. Good morning, Chairman. And political strategist Holly Cook Macarro. Good morning, Holly, about the 2024 presidential election. Well, I got through that. You guys know that. I mean, I read notes like hostages, you know what I mean? I'm just not good after all these hundreds of podcasts and stuff like that. It's just not a natural thing for me, but I'm trying. I'm working on it. Good morning, Holly. Good morning, Chairman. How are you doing?
Good, real good.
I'm good.
Holly,
good
so
Great to see you.
Did you go to the Philadelphia rally yesterday? That's what I was talking to these guys. Did you go to the rally?
I did not go to the Philadelphia rally, but I did watch it. And in fact, I watched it a couple of times. It was as a Minnesotan,
right?
I'm feeling a little exposed right now, right, with all the coverage and the I think translation of our colloquialisms and how we refer to things and our very nice way of insulting people. And
and
Ernie, you can almost count yourself in there. You know that, like, people in Wisconsin are familiar with Governor Walz. I think about a third of the state is probably in the Minneapolis metro area media market. So
I still read the Pioneer Press from my college days.
You're not quite a Vikings fan, but you have that. So that's why I did watch. I thought Governor Walz did such a terrific job, and it's been a really fun couple of days watching the rest of the country get to know our terrific governor. And I think he's terrific, and I know that part of all the work and the success that he's had with tribes in the state of Minnesota is due in large part to his partnership with Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, who's, as most of us know, a member of the White Earth Nation.
Well, you know what? First of all, I didn't know you're from Minnesota. Just kidding. Actually, Holly is a very proud member of the Red Lake Band, has been working in politics. And so for me, it's been very personal. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Holly and I are cousins. She's married to my cousin, Mark Macarro. Holly and I are family and very, very close. So for me personally, it's been this sense of pride knowing that my cousin is right in the middle of all this stuff and part of, speaking of colloquialisms, we call it the Minnesota Mafia around here where I live. But you know what? I mean, it's part of this even bigger group of Native American women that you belong to and that I'm privileged to see from the outside, and very impressed with the strength that these Native American women have and the power that they share together. It's been amazing. So to watch, if Tim Walz, if he is elected, that means Peggy Flanagan would be the first Native American governor in Minnesota. So that's pretty exciting. Chairman, there's a big rally tonight in Wisconsin, I saw. Are you going to go to that one? Where's that at, Holly?
Eau Claire, I believe.
Eau Claire. I don't think that's near you. I believe that's on the other side.
It's not, it's on western Wisconsin. It's like I said, in the area where I went to college, about an hour north of Eau Claire. So we know Minnesota, and like I said, I still buy that newspaper. But yeah, so it's a huge. Eau Claire's a big time college town, and it's North Country, so a lot of country folks in that area as well. So yeah, it should be a great turnout. I'm going to be watching my, don't tell anybody I told you, my 65-year-old wife play 6 matches of volleyball tonight. That's what I'll be doing.
Wow. Wow.
In between our other Zoom we'll be doing as well. So
Wow. Wow. So, let's jump right into this thing. I think we have a race already. I think, we have two candidates to me that seem to have been defined. I think the big thing that the big question for me, Holly, and Chairman, you can jump in this too, but do you expect much change from a President Harris, from a President Biden to a President Harris in terms of the policies towards Indian country?
What I expect, and I took a minute to look back at her 2020, she had her brief run for president in 2020, Kamala Harris for the people. And so I went back and looked at what her plan was then. It goes a bit farther, I think, than what the party hasn't put forth the plan yet. There was supposed to be a rollout this week, but I think given, all the shakeup in the race, the VP, that didn't happen. So hopefully next week we'll see some sort of Native Americans for Harris Walz come out. But I think we'll see the good things, right? The good things that came back that didn't take place during Trump, like the annual Tribal Nations Conference. I expect a commitment that will continue, and that's very important. It's such a driver of action within the administration, and really, a high level place for engagement that tribal leaders have come to count on. I think there are some things that will change, right? We've got some priorities of the Biden administration that Secretary Holland has really been, the face of their 30-30 commitment, their all of the face of the climate agenda, all of those things. I think there might be some shift in priorities. You heard a little bit of that last night in hearing Vice President Harris talk about what her priorities will be, and that is building up the middle class in America. So what that looks like, I think there will be possibly a set of different priorities in how that plays out. One of the other things that I think will continue to that we'll see is the appointment of Native Americans throughout the administration. That is something that I've seen grow, and Ernie, I think you've seen this too over the last 25 years, from one person and then the assistant secretary. There were either people at the BIA or there was maybe one person in the White House. But now we've got 70 people all across the administration, and those folks are the ones on the day-to-day basis, are the ones that interact with tribal leaders, implement policies, put forth regulations, all of these things that have such a huge impact on the ground in Indian country. And so I think as tribal leaders, as we move over the next 89 days, that's something that we need to be asking for. So I think, sometimes we talk about what are their priorities? Well, what are our priorities? What are we asking for? The things that we want to see continue. So that kind of builds on your question, but I think we'll see the good things and a few more as I keep wanting to say President Harris, but I think I'm manifesting. But the Vice President Harris gets all of these things together and her people in place at the campaign, I think we'll see those policy documents filled out a bit more.
Let me say this.
Yeah, go ahead, Chairman. Go ahead, Chairman. Go ahead.
Let me add on to that real quick. I think there will be change. I think she'll be our own person, and I think that we should expect that. So I think that we'll continue to have to do what we've done under this Biden administration: advise, educate, be a part of teamwork, and talk to their team. I think there's a great team, a great foundation, and I don't think that team foundation, that team philosophy will change a whole bunch, but I think we should take it very serious that, well, this vice president has an outstanding chance to be our president, and I think it's our job to continue to not to take for granted our influence. We want to hit the ground running and let her know where we come from, and not start from scratch. We won't have to do that. But we have to anticipate we still have to do our work. We have to do the work that created all these great things under the Biden administration to continue that consistency. So I think it'll be different, but I think it still has a great opportunity, a great chance to be great for Indian country, just like this last 4 years has been.
Well, what I'm hearing is that a good continuation of the policy is not a rubber stamp. So, it's not going to just switch You know, do you think there's a chance that Deb Haaland will keep her job, that we'll have a continuation? I mean, that would be wonderful. Don't you think so, Holly?
Well, I think it would be wonderful, but it is extremely rare for cabinet secretaries to stay through 2 administrations. And I think it's been covered fairly publicly in both the New Mexico press and a bit in the national press as well, that Secretary Haaland intends to run for governor of New Mexico as well.
Oh, wow. How did I miss that? You know, gee. So you know, I think
There's not much
you know,
more to do, Victor.
you think I'd see everything, right? You know, Jason, you know, what does this mean for IGA? I think, you know, during the Trump administration, and as we're doing this, I'm thinking, you know, maybe I should reach out to Mark Wayne Mullen and see if he wants to talk about, you know, what the Trump administration is going to do. But, you know, our access was not very good during the Trump administration, was it? Was it, Chairman?
Well,
Jason?
no, I mean, they were pretty focused on, you know, yeah, they took away the White House office, put it over in the interior, the White House Indian office, which is, of course, back in there now. But, you know, they got rid of a lot of tribal offices at the agency level. So, you know, for instance, at Department of Veterans Affairs, there's usually a tribal liaison person that works in there and outreaches the tribe. They got rid of that, and they got rid of the one at they got rid of the liaison officer at most of the agencies except for the Department of Energy. And they had a very nice gentleman from the Crow Reservation going around trying to sell coal plants to tribes. So I don't know how effective that was, but you know, they could have done a lot more for sure. I will say, look, we're going to have a new government, whoever wins this election, and with the Supreme Court we have, we need to reset Indian policy. And we've been doing this NCAI IGA task force for, it'll be 2 years this fall. And, you know, we collected all this great comments and issues from folks. And what surprised us is they're not happy with the Biden administration, and they're not happy with consultation. They're not happy with renewable energy programs rollout. They're not happy with a lot of environmental programs, the way they're being rolled out by this administration. And it's been really contentious at a couple of the NCAI conferences when they've brought in agency heads, whether it's Deb Haaland or the Department of Agriculture. And those are things that have got to be worked through. And, you know, I don't really fault the Biden administration for any of that, because coming out of COVID, everything was really messed up and backlogged. But Kamala Harris is sitting on a bright opportunity. I will say, Holly, what my understanding, and you guys know California politics better than I did, but tribes had a real issue with Kamala when she was Attorney General because she wouldn't clamp down on illegal gambling. It's all forgotten on that front. You know, it seems like, you know, same with, she wouldn't commute marijuana sentences for people in jail for simple nonviolent marijuana sentences, even though California had legalized marijuana. So I think the African-American community is going to forgive her for that, but you know, she's definitely played some cards well here, so you can't really paint her as you know, soft on crime or anything. But tribes really wanted her to crack down on illegal gambling, and she wasn't responsive to that.
Well, I won't speak on behalf of the tribal leadership of the state of California. What I will refer to is what I think is, you know, there's a natural tension built in between attorney generals whose client is the state, and the head of the state is the governor. And we've seen this happen. We saw this happen in Connecticut as well, right? Where we had an attorney general then who was just reviled by the tribes of Connecticut, and then who turns out to be a bit of an ally once he got to the Senate. And so I think building on what you know, what that healthy tension is there, I think tribal leaders naturally sometimes feel as if attorney generals use that relationship as an excuse, as well. I'm not doing this because my client is the governor and that's the governor's. Well, the governor kind of, said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I think that was in regards to the fee to trust pieces in California. I will put a little bit of a background on the gaming question, in that there were 4 attorney generals who failed to act on the tribe's request to crack down on the card rooms. So not that makes it any better, but that issue was not specific to Kamala Harris. And again, I think she pointed towards the governor.
As the irony of this is that our guest next week is going to be Tori Bigknife, who's going to be talking about it. So I just got an email in my inbox from Tori. We're going to be talking about that in California. So the issue goes beyond her and still playing out in California. So irony of ironies, right?
Victor, I think we're going to deal with that, and I think that, and again, Jason's putting us to work here to dealing with some of those histories, but we have those kinds of issues not just in California that we got to deal with, and that's our job. And I think that history is one thing, but I think this whole last 4 years, I think it's reflected that folks understand where we're coming from and they're willing to listen. And so, I agree that those concerns are out there, but you have to really look at the things that have happened in Indian country. Yeah, it's not perfect, and you're always going to have those kinds of challenges no matter where you go. So I agree with Jason on some of those issues and concerns. But you know what? I think that it's been a giant step forward to be able to work with this administration the way we have, to be able to even talk, even if we disagreed, even be able to talk to them like we have. So again, history is one thing, and some of those challenges is another. But I think I heard my neighboring state's governor say on last night is that we're going forward. We're taking a giant step forward. And I think that what has happened the last 4 years, that goes with it. So I think that we have a great chance to do great things, and we're going to run into those roadblocks and challenges. And the administration, and as Jason said, even in a friendly administration that has done so many great things, we still have challenges we have to deal with. That's our job. That's Indian country's job to take that head on.
And Victor, right now, Kamala, I heard her mention tribal nations, tribal communities last night, and she regularly mentions Native Americans. So, I mean, there's only one party doing that right now. And to you, Holly, how was Tim Walz's as governor? How was his relationship with the tribes there in Minnesota?
It was a historic partnership, I think, in the level of access that the tribal leaders had to the administration. This might seem like window dressing to some folks, but we all know how important it is for elected officials to visit our communities. It's one thing for us to go in and tell our story, but I recently participated in a research project about and the feedback from members on the Hill. What was most informative for them? And it was visiting our communities. And I think we've all seen that over the years as well. And Governor Walz became the first governor in the history of the state of Minnesota to visit all 11 reservations in the state. So I think that's historic. He established the office that deals with MMIW and issued the executive order that required consultation and training of all of the commissioners in the state, which are kind of like cabinet secretaries, and we call them commissioners in Minnesota. So his partnership, his accessibility, I've seen him. I've been to some of his meetings with tribal leaders, and he is in the weeds on some of these issues. We had the gaming bill in the state of Minnesota last year that kind of went down to the wire, and that will be coming up again. And it's clear that the tribes have really flexed and exerted their political influence, although it didn't quite get it across the finish line. They're in the middle of kind of a PR issue right now with the appointment of 2 tribal leaders to the Horse Racing Commission. And those things I think are really very public and high profile statements of support for tribes, tribal sovereignty, and the communities they represent.
Yeah, I think
the appointment of Melanie Benjamin to the Minnesota Gaming Commission and Johnny Johnson, I believe, was pretty bold. You know what I mean? I apologize, Chairman. Go ahead, but it was
I'm
pretty
sorry.
bold.
Yeah, I think that I don't know about bold, but I think that Governor Walz is very firm, and but he's also very open and fair. He's a former school teacher. He's a former congressman. He knows the system. He knows what to do, and it appears to be anybody that teaches school is one of the most important warriors in the United States of America. I love every single school teacher for what they do because they don't make a lot of money, but they prepare our young folks for the future. And so I think all those qualifications, and my own personal meeting, I only met him a few times, but the last time I met him, he referenced the discussion I had with him in the previous time I met him. So it's very impressive to me that he could do that, considering all the Native people that he met and all his constituents in Minnesota. I think he's the real deal. I think he's fair, and I think he's open and honest, and I think that he would make an excellent vice president. And again, at the Indian Gaming Association, I'm nonpartisan, so I have to be careful, but I'm just giving you my observations. In the Trump administration, again, I bring it back to us because we didn't have the best process, but we went out there and worked it. We went out there and knocked on the doors. We went out there and talked to people, and we did the best we can. And that's on our shoulders.
Yeah, I'll note,
Chairman, yeah, go ahead, Jason.
in Governor Walz's bio, I don't know if are we calling him governor, coach, teacher? I don't know. He had a lot of titles last night, but he taught at the Pine Ridge Reservation in the early 90s. He lists that on his biography when he started out as a teacher. So, I imagine that he's got great familiarity with Indian country through teaching and through his interaction with tribes in Minnesota.
I was just going to throw out that fun fact, Jason. You
okay.
Yes. He was a substitute teacher at the Wolf Creek School in Pine Ridge in 1995. And he talks about it often. I think, if you have had the opportunity to visit with Governor Walz, he references that often.
I mean, what can we say about the Trump administration? I mean, that's one thing was that, we did have 4 years of dealing with the president and his administration. So, he has a track record. And I think, we can compare, where we as Native Americans and we as an organization, the Indian Gaming Association, our relationship. Now, I think J.D. Vance, the vice presidential candidate, wasn't a senator hasn't been a senator very long. Therefore, he doesn't really have a track record in Indian country. Is that correct, Holly?
That's my understanding. Jason, you
yeah. I mean, only time I heard him mention Indians is when he said Indigenous Peoples Day is a fake holiday. So I don't know. Oh, he's also against renaming some forest in Ohio that's named after a Revolutionary Era general that removed a lot of Indian tribes from Ohio on down to Oklahoma. So I think he like a lot of things, he needs to read a little bit more.
Well, it's funny as a Native American. I mean, I laugh because this is just so common. You know what I mean? I mean, we've made a lot of progress, and I think with the administration, I think I seriously should reach out to Mark Wayne Mullen and get someone who wants to talk about it from that, who's very enthusiastic. I think it's.
I will say, if you read through Project 2025, that 900-page document, whoever wrote the Indian section obviously knows what our priorities are at NCI and IGA sovereignty.
I read it. I liked it originally in its original German. You know what I mean? I think the translation is very dry, but you guys can go back. Google translation.
We're gonna find out.
Let's call that masterful wordsmithing for we're gonna open up all your lands to drilling and do away with environmental protections while dissolving the Department of Education.
Yeah.
you know what? And I have to be honest,
our self-determination or land back. So let's read it for what it is.
Listen,
Be dealing
it's
with
not our
bureaucrats who have to
job
take
to
a
be
loyalty oath.
bamboozled.
So, yeah.
Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm just, it was a, you know, in that same document, you know, they're gonna gut the federal employee workforce and make people take loyalty oaths, but you know, they're gonna let tribes incarcerate people on the reservation for longer than a year and strengthen tribal courts and tribal police. And you know, I guess there is you know, if that's a silver lining in Project 2025, Indian country could have a lot worse. But and to your point, Holly, yeah, they want to open up oil exploration and pipelines and everything, but you know, they're at least they're willing to let tribes keep some of the money, according to the document. So whoever was author of that, we need to track them down and you know, preserve that little slice of sovereignty that they would let us enjoy. But
the scraps of sovereignty they're going to
yeah,
throw to us. Is that
it's
what you're
interesting.
saying?
You know, it's easy to sit here, Victor, and go back through the Trump administration and what they did or mostly didn't do for tribes. But I will say, of all the agencies, we had a really good relationship with the Treasury Department and Steve Mnuchin. They were very receptive. They always took calls. A lot of the folks in the Treasury were very pro-tribal, and you saw that in the COVID money and the COVID relief bills. So, you know, as long as you can get through to them, there's always a hope. But you know, we certainly don't like having the White House Indian office, you know, thrown out of the White House and over in the interior. We got enough to deal with at the interior.
Wow, what if they made Stitt the Secretary of Interior or someone like that? You know what I mean? I mean, that would be just
Again?
a nightmare again. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they took the Oklahoma guy last time, and he wasted millions of dollars rebuilding his office, and then got kicked out. So,
Let me say,
Wow.
let me jump in, Victor. Again, you know, I think if you look back, you know, we had the late Ben Keel. You know, he has since passed away, a young guy, and he was there, and you know, God bless him. He did the best he could. He reached out to us and he helped me to get, you know, a few doors open. But again, there was folks in there that we never even heard of. And I always put that on us. We got to get in there and break the doors down, and we have to get those folks. And I said this in about a year before the end of the last the Trump administration. There's a bunch of Native Americans that signed on to a letter supporting then candidate Trump, and I called them. I mean, I called them out in our meeting and said, "You guys got to get in here and help us do what we need to do." So those folks that support that Trump administration, those are the folks we're going to have to call on. And again, I'm not making any predictions about who's going to win, but I'm prepared to deal with either administration. And you know, it's not easy either way. We just have a better posture and get so much success in these last 4 years. I'd love to build on that, but I'm ready to do whatever we have to do.
Yeah, Chairman, you've always done a really good job of walking that line, and I know you pass it on to us down the food chain, you know, to you know, walk that line and not be you know, as this organization, that's not our job to choose. So I think it's important just to have these type of relationships so that we can get the message through. I think that's our job. So, you know, I remember Lance Morgan wrote an op-ed and was very public and said, you know, you should vote for Trump. And it was his reasons were very pro-business, and that's what his take was. So, you know, I think there are a lot of people in Indian country who support that. And by the way, Chairman, you were just at the Republican National Convention. How was that?
I think, you know, I attended the Indian Country Priorities for the Republican Party, hosted by Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. And we had Marshall Parikh from Tunica, the chairman, and Jared Lower from Lumbee of North Carolina, and law professor Adam Frippel from Mahoma tribe, and Myron Lizer, the former vice president at Navajo. And, it talked about, economic development, missing and murdered indigenous women, tribal business and things like that. And I thought it was productive. I thought it was a very productive meeting. And I thought it was a step in the right direction. And I think, again, we have to take these kinds of roundtable discussions and apply those to Indian country immediately, whether Trump wins or not. This is hosted by Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. And so we got an opportunity to get to work, So I think that, that's probably, the most that I've seen in previous, I've been to about every RNC. So I think this is one of the best, most productive events that I've seen at an RNC. And I think there was some good discussion there, and a lot of tribal leaders, a lot of tribal officials. So it's a good step in the right direction.
And Holly,
I knew he's a senator, but I couldn't remember. So thanks for telling me. Go ahead, Jason.
you tried to demote him, Victor? But,
He's a former congressman.
Yeah, be careful. Mark Wayne's got a temper there. So, but Holly, given that, Vice President Harris and Governor Walz, they both have at least, extensive background knowledge about Indian gaming and pretty much how it works. We've got a lot of issues still in the gaming industry that for now, this back-to-back administrations basically ignored. We can start with like the big one, the Wire Act has got to be amended one of these centuries because it's a completely outdated law. And, and then we want to get certain taxes relieved. And, now seems to be a good time. You can ask Trump for anything. He's going to, take away the taxes you pay on Social Security. He's going to take away taxes on tips. You get to keep your tips. Seems like he's an open book right now for any and all suggestions, and he'll just say yes. But what do you think about their how they would impact the gaming industry, or is it more just about how they would handle the technology industry?
That's a great question. I think this ticket, the Harris Walz, might be the most educated in Indian about tribal sovereignty, about gaming in particular, because of where they come from, the roles that they and experience that they bring to the table. We talked a bit about Kamala Harris's experience in California, and but in the state of Minnesota, Governor Walz has been a very active participant in all of the Indian policies. Interestingly, when he was in the House, he was one of a very few Democrats that signed on to the Tribal Labor Sovereignty Act in 17, 15? And the last time we saw that go through. And we all know how hard we fought to get any Democrats to sign on to that bill. And so, I think that was an important commitment of his understanding of the primacy of tribal sovereignty, even, against the backdrop of labor unions. He's probably going to play that down now as labor unions begin to, throw millions of dollars and boots on the ground in support of Harris Walz. But I think that's an important thing to note for Indian country, and I think, represents a level of education that he's going to bring along with Vice President Harris. Those things I think will inform how who they appoint, right, at the Department of Interior, and the role that they might play. We might see, we don't very often see engagement, from the White House on specific Indian policies. That decision-making authority is delegated, to the political appointees at the Department of Interior or other relevant agencies. But given the level of familiarity that we have here, I think either the appointments will be very well informed, or we may see some activism from the White House. As Ernie said, this will be a new administration, and with what I think is maybe an unprecedented level of education by the two candidates on the ticket on the Democratic side.
Let me just to follow up there. You're right. I forgot about that. He was on that very pro-tribal bill, Tribal Labor Sovereignty Act, and as was Betty McCollum. Are he and Betty pretty close?
Yes, it's not a huge delegation in the state of Minnesota. There are 8, but 10, 10 members in the delegation, 8 congressional districts, and 2 members of the Senate. So, and split there between Democrats and Republicans. So it's a very close Democratic delegation. I think Betty is the most senior Democrat now. So she holds, and also, a senior appropriator as well. So she holds a unique position of influence and spending authority that I think it has been, I know from my own experience in advocating for the Red Lake Nation that those partnerships there and utilizing, where there's a state component and federal component, whether it's, in land back situations or co-management, all of those things, the partnership between the state and federal has been very good. One of a very recent example of that is the return of the lands to the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe, the 14,000 acres. And that was, there was a state component to that. And then Betty McCollum sponsored the bill, and Tina Smith did it in the Senate. So, I think that was a terrific example of the sort of cooperation that goes on between the delegation and probably very representative of the relationships there as well.
Well, I think, like you said, this is one of the most pro-tribal. I remember when I stumbled into the industry in the late 90s, early 2000s, Holly, when we first met, we were just coming out of the infancy of tribal gaming still. And, we barely had a voice. It's kind of amazing to see this, 24 years later.
We're battle scarred, and so are the members.
Yeah. Well, listen, we might be a little early in this conversation because we don't really have, policy papers yet. You know what I mean? Right now we're talking campaign promises and stuff. We don't have anything other than Project 25. And I think it'd be foolish to disregard it because the Heritage Foundation was a big part of the Trump administration deciding who was judges and who was not. He took their suggestions and ran with it. So I think it would be naive to think, that a lot of these conservatives who wrote this thing and wrote it with, knowing in fact that this would be a template for the Trump administration to run with. So as we know, there's some very scary things in there. It's a document that doesn't respect tribal sovereignty. So I don't think it's too far reached to say that this could be, have some influence on the Trump administration. So from that, in that term, that's kind of scary. We see the ex-president Trump moving away from it, being very vocal, but we see the guy who wrote it, the president of the project, was just let go from the Heritage Foundation. Now he's with the John Birch Society. So I don't know where he's at. So it's I'm sure it's just a lateral move.
Americans for Tax Reform.
It's just a lateral move. Nobody's impressed. Nobody is, you know what I mean? It's when like a TikTok magician or something like that. We see the trick, So so Chairman, you were at the RNC, and I think you might, I saw your pictures and stuff like that. I saw Jeffrey Standing Bear there. I saw a bunch of other just really good, solid Republican people who were there doing their job and stuff like that. I thought that was good to know that there is at least some, voice in Indian country that's going to be heard in India during the Trump administration. How was your relationship, government to government type of relationship, in your role with the Trump administration? How was that?
I think we did okay. I think not anywhere near to our satisfaction. I forgot the guy's name. That was his top guy in the White House. He appeared to, have his heart was in the right place, but, he really didn't know Indian country. And so we did our best to work with him. And, I think that he really felt like he did, but he didn't. And so we had to work within those limitations. Now, Ben Keel, even the late Ben Keel, he didn't know Indian country as well either, but he listened to us. He invited us. He came and talked to us, and he did the best he can, because he was, how do you say, like a work in progress, or he was learning as he went. And Ben did the best he could, but it just wasn't there. The expertise wasn't there. And I think if that is to happen again, I'm hoping that the Trump administration will get out there and nail some of these Native American folks that are speaking in that tone, to get out there and walk their talk and show us what they can do. What I did, I know now Congressman Zinke, I believe his name is, was in his administration. I told him that, we're willing to do whatever we need to do to make this thing work for tribes. And I told him about the previous administration that my father worked under, and where my father worked closely with the Nixon administration, and they created a lot of things related to Indian self-determination, and they created opportunities for economic development, and they just got the people in these government jobs to get out there and get to understand and appreciate Indian country and do what their trust responsibility was set out to do. And Holly knows her late uncle, Lee Cook, was a part of that team. And I talked to Zinke about that. And I said, this is where we need to go. And it's that fundamental, that this is where we need to go. And of course, he didn't stay too long in the administration, but he's in the House again, so we could call on him to help us. They have to understand that we have to get them to listen to us, and they also have to take advantage of strengths. So I agree with the gentleman from Ho Chunk Incorporated that take advantage of his economic development strength. Let's do something with it, but let's not talk about it. Let's go do something.
Yeah, Lance is doing very well. They just opened up the new casino yesterday, the Warhorse Casino, the Winnebago tribe through the Ho Chunk Corporation just opened. He's now running point on sports betting and mobile online gambling too. I think he's learn how to pull the levers of power in Nebraska, and seems to be running point on all those issues. So it's really fascinating to watch. I think he's the chairman of the Ho Chunk Inc. is what he is, or something like that. So, excuse me.
Well, so Holly, we're still, comparatively speaking, far away. We know that the race won't heat up till, October 1st. What, from now until then, of course, we have the convention. What do you think Indian country can do to sort of influence what, the parties are putting together here? Should we be submitting points for, if they have potential debates between each other, should we get them to include, Indian country issues in, larger law enforcement issues, environmental issues? How does that work when you have an active campaign going?
I think there's a number of different, on-ramps there. We have the convention coming up, and at the Democratic National Convention, there is a Native American caucus that is meeting, I think, at least 2 of the days this year. And that is made up of all the Native American delegates to the convention. And usually, the cabinet members visit. There's a number of speakers, and that is a good opportunity for interaction and engagement there. In terms of being out on the campaign, there's those tribes that give, on the finance side, and that's always an important opportunity. And then there are opportunities to meet when these candidates are out, on the campaign. It just, 4 of these states that are considered battleground states: Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, and of course there's going to be, Michigan, Minnesota kind of on the margin, New Mexico, just given the impact of the native vote there. I always talk about that. And a high native population, not reservation based, but in North Carolina. So those campaign stops there, when candidates land, there's usually smaller meetings that happen around those. Make sure that, tribal leaders, should make sure that they are being given the same opportunity as other elected officials to attend those meetings and have, these small, get in what they call clutch, if it's just a small meeting, or actually, request a meeting when when the candidates are on the ground. So those I think will be important opportunities as we move towards, the election day. In regards to the debates, I think they're very difficult. And obviously with the presidential, debate commission just out the door, and it's really more of just a negotiation between candidates now. And that's going on now, happening in the press with, missives being crossed about whether it's on ABC or Fox News and when it's going to be. And so I think when that's decided, say that happens in Arizona, I don't know where, I don't know where they're going to land on what the location is, but getting a question in a state like Arizona would make a lot of sense, just recognizing the land that you're on, the community that you're in, the size of the population in that state. I think it'll be more difficult if they're in a place where there's not a high Native American population, but weighing in with the campaign and weighing in on both sides, folks who are influential on the Trump administration, on the Trump camp, folks who are influential with Harris Walz, and asking those questions about, here, both getting in priorities. I think at this point, the platforms are done, the Republican convention is done, DNC is next week. So platforms are done, but priority pieces, I think, can still be developed. Certainly talking points and commitments from candidates can happen, the whole time, and things that we can look back on to hold their feet to the fire if they're elected. So there's a few on-ramps there.
Do we have a policy paper from the Trump campaign yet on tribal gaming or Indian country? I assume they won't talk about tribal gaming.
They don't even have a policy paper for their own party. So
I think they just adopted wholesale the one from the last convention.
Right.
My understanding.
Wow.
So,
wow.
yeah.
Wow.
But minus abortion stuff, Holly. And
yes.
I
looked down the authority on abortion to the state. So
yeah. So
is there anything about colonizing Mars? Things that would like make Elon happy or stuff like that. I think that's what she'll be looking at. Well, look at it's we are in the beginning of August. The campaign is going to start getting down and dirty now. I think now that we know who the vice president's candidates, I think it's official that we have a race. I think the President Biden deciding to step aside and bringing in Kamala Harris to be the president. I mean, that was a shock for everyone. We have to recalibrate what it's going to be for Indian country. I think we see Vice President Harris. I think she is going to be smart about it. I think choosing Governor Walz was a big move because we have someone that just has very pro Native American history, and I think that's very important to us to at least give us some optimism. And so I think when we get through the end of the month, I think we're all going to be sick of this campaign and ready to vote. But I think it allows us, I think right now we're still painting what she's going to be. I think she's still a blank slate for a lot of us. And I think that's where the optimism is, which is, maybe she seems to be listening and making smart moves, and it would be smart to reach out to the tribes. I think the Trump campaign, I think we're treated the same way as we were treated before. We're used to it. We're professionals. We know how that goes. So, but it was a big shock. Holly, were you shocked that the president stepped aside?
I was. I didn't.
Yeah.
The enormity of it, of a president abandoning his re-election campaign at that point. I was supportive and happy. Just given for the fortunes of, obviously I'm a Democrat, and the fortunes of the party that I align with, but it was a surprise to me.
Chairman, were you surprised?
I don't know that I was surprised. maybe a little, because I thought he was going to hold the line. But you kind of see, the kind of struggle that was going on, and you really feel for the guy. The guy worked so hard and done so much, not just for Indian country, but for America and the world. And to see him have to have those kinds of struggles, and age is age. People age differently. My grandmother drove a car till she was 93 and taught school till she was 93. But some people they're doing the best they can. But when God slows you down, He just slows you down. And sometimes you don't have a choice. And so I think that certainly I think that it created a new energy and brought a new burst of energy to the campaign. And I don't think Joe Biden is going to go anyplace. I think that the president still has a lot of work to do, but allow him to take some of the demand from his schedule and the things he has to do, and maybe enjoy life a little bit, and be able to see some of the things that he laid out under his administration. See those things be successful. That's going to be up to us.
Yeah, I think we're putting a lot of hopes into Kamala Harris and her presidency. I mean, you can't deny that the President Biden's administration, I think with Deb Haaland, Secretary Haaland, was one of the most supportive administrations in the history of the United States. And you just have to look at the Seminole deal and the support the Seminole tribe got from the administration, from Deb Haaland and the Biden administration. You just can't ignore that. And if it wasn't for this administration really looking to help the tribes, to saying, listen, especially with online gaming and sports betting, the support they gave Seminoles is reverberating through Indian country. You know what I mean? And that wouldn't have happened without a pro-Indian country president, and that is Joe Biden. You know what I mean? You just can't deny that. So I think a lot of us are hoping that her pragmatism is not going to override her heart and her instinct in knowing that Indian country has come a long way, and we have a long way to go, and we need a good partner. So I think that's my issue, which is tribal gaming, and that's our issue, which is tribal gaming. So I think there's a lot of optimism, and I think maybe even with Trump, hopefully he can see that the good that has happened in Indian country with tribal gaming and support us. Although, listen, it was a mess for us. I mean, let's be honest. You know what I mean? You look at what they did. I mean, they were trying to undo the Mashpee Wampanoags. They went into, MGM had an open door at Secretary of Interior. They hired Gail Norton. She was on roller skates riding through the Interior Department and stuff. So the problem is we are on the outside again. And by the way, speaking of Zinke, the thing that I'm reminded of, as you mentioned this guy, is when he was Secretary of Interior, he rode to the first day on January 20th on a horse called Tonto to the Department of Interior. So, those kind of things you just can't forget. You know what I mean? I mean, couldn't the horse be named something else? I mean, couldn't have been Spot or, a Challenge or, Tonto. So, there you go. I'm not lying, right?
Oh,
So, what, listen, go ahead, Chairman.
And ask him to be a part of a productive future.
Well,
of his horse's name.
He's a congressman now. You're right. You know what I mean? And he will never live that down if I'm in the room. So, well, listen, we are close to being in. We have a couple questions. I believe there are more statements than questions. Supportive of us, my friend Monica Tranel, running in Montana, is very supportive of the issues, and I can help her give us more visibility on this. Running for office, I assume, I hope, you know what I mean? Okay. And then the other one is the Earth Law Center wants to be more visible in supporting these issues too. So happy to discuss, strategize. I think our Charlie Columby spirit is with us. Chairman Charlie, you know what? We were talking about him not too long ago. I mean, how can you not smile when you think of Chairman Charlie? So he'll always be in my heart. That's for sure. So, you know what? I think we kind of wrapped up. I think we know. I
Right.
think to surmise where we're at, that I think we're very optimistic that the presidential campaign of President Harris will soon address these issues. I think we're kind of shocked that the Trump campaign, shocked not shocked, hasn't addressed these issues. So hopefully, real soon we can have someone in from the Trump side to talk about their pro-tribal policies and stuff. So we're gonna wrap that up. First of all, I would like to thank my beautiful and intelligent cousin, one of the smartest people in the world that I know. She humbles me all the time. And then, of course, our glorious leader, the Chairman Ernest Stevens Jr. Chairman. It's always wonderful to see you. Thank you for going down to the RNC for us and sharing the pictures. I wouldn't have known it was there if it wasn't for you.
I've been to every RNC since I've been in office.
All right. Oh, and Joni Clark, thank you. Monica Trano will win Montana as her second time Olympic champ and support spots. Okay. Oh, and then Michael McBride asking for the videos. I believe they're on YouTube right now, Michael. If you go to the Indian Gaming Association, the last ones are up there. So Holly, thank you very much. Chairman, thank you very much. And everyone, we will be here. Are we here next week, Jason, or when are you on vacation?
Well, we're at Oklahoma Indian Gaming next week, and then the week after that is the Democratic National Convention. So we'll see you there, Holly, at the DNC. And then we'll see everyone at our mid-year, September 16th at Tulalip in Washington. And then, of course, we have NCAI also before the election. So we'll talk about this a lot more. And, we're going to reach out to both campaigns and try to get them either at our show or at NCAI and, see if they'll come talk.
Yeah, he's right. You can talk tribal gaming in Oklahoma coming up. You can talk at our show in September at Tulalip, and then we'll all be at G2E also right in October, right before the election, talking election stuff. So if you see us, stop and say hello. So
I think next week, everyone, tough, Victor, but we'll maybe during the
2 weeks.
DNC,
Give us 2 weeks.
Well, maybe during the DNC we can do something quick. So
Chairman
will be there. I'll be there. Holly will be there. All the folks will be there.
I know Tori's going to want to talk. I mean, we could talk about Tori about all kinds of stuff. So that'll be really fun. So, all right, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. See you. Thanks for everyone for joining us. Bye-bye.